Okay, welcome back. So we are going to finish up the new material for today. Part of lesson 2, the second part of lesson 3 is the multiplication property of equality. And so what that says is you can multiply both sides of an equation by the same number and the two sides remain equal. So remember each one of these, the addition property of equality, subtraction property of equality, division property of equality, multiplication property of equality are all saying that basically whatever you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other to keep them balanced. And what we were learning on the balance, which is not entirely new to you guys, because when you guys were learning how to simplify fractions, you learned that if I divide the top, I got to divide it by the bottom to keep things equivalent. It's the same idea, but this time we're doing it on either sides of an equation. My dogs are bugging me because they want to go for a WALK in a bit. Okay. So again, the most important takeaway is this. Takeaway is when an equation contains division, solve by multiplying both sides of the equation by the same number. Because as I mentioned in the other video, multiplication and division are inverses of each other. They kind of undo each other. So if you had an equation that contained a division, like 20 divided by 4 equals 5, its inverse would be 5 times 4 equals 20. Okay, they're called each other's inverse. So let's look. You may have go ahead and pause this if you haven't. If you need to finish writing this stuff down, I've been using colors just to make things really stand out. I encourage you to do that. Take your time. You're not having to do this in class really rushed to make it to where your notes are legible. Otherwise, they're kind of pointless. And then you're going to start asking questions and go, how do I do that again? When you actually should have it right here. Okay, so let's look at a couple of examples. Let me get, stuff just fell off my table. Oh, my pencil's rolling away. Oh well. Okay, so it happens. The first problem we're going to look at is x over 5 equals 10. Okay, so this is a division relationship. Remember, our fraction bar also represents division. It means I'm taking my top number, which is my dividend, and I'm dividing it by my bottom number, which is my divisor. Okay, this is what you guys make a lot of mistakes sometimes flipping those two. But the top number is being divided by the bottom number, or the numerator is being divided by the denominator, or the dividend is being divided by the divisor. All those great math words. Okay, so if this is division, if I have an equation that contains division, I want to solve it by multiplying both sides of the equation by the same number. Now, this one's really, really easy, but they get complicated when you get into fractions and decimals and other really large numbers. So we're going to practice with the easy stuff, which is what we usually do. So if I want to multiply both sides, what do you think I should multiply both sides of this equation by? Well, in all the other things we've done, we've always looked at the side of the equation that has a number, the side of the equation that has the variable and looked at the number that's over there with the variable. So on this side of the equation with the variable x, I have a 5 that x is being divided by. So if I multiply, and I'm going to use a dot here because I don't want to use x's and get them confused with my variables x. If I multiply, remember, if I multiply a fraction by a whole number, which you guys practiced this morning in your warm-up, isn't that the same as just putting my whole number over a 1? Sorry, I'm having a hard time finding words. And then you would normally like multiply across, right? But then remember we learned that we can simplify before we multiply. So they have a common factor of 5, that 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes in here once. Basically, I just end up with a bunch of 1s over here. So I just have an x. But if I'm going to multiply this side of my equation, because right now I'm like this, then I need to multiply this side of my equation by 5. Okay, so these are the only ones where you're going to actually kind of write them out to the side. With addition and subtraction, I've had you writing them below. With division, you wrote the fraction bar or division bar and wrote it below. But with multiplication, you're going to kind of write it out to the side, which when you get to bigger equations in the future, sometimes you end up kind of having to either rewrite it or just kind of write up. But for now, this is easy. So then I go 10 times 5 is 50. And then just like we did with the other ones, we want to check it. So you're going to come over here and say check. I'm going to take my original equation, which was x over 5, and substitute in the 50. So 50 over 5 is equal to 10. Is that correct? Yes, because if I take 15 divided by 5, I get 10. Okay, easy. I know you can do mental math, but again, we're not in 4th or 5th grade anymore. We're not just going to show Miss Offit I can multiply and divide. You better be able to multiply and divide. What you need to be showing me is that you know how to set up equations and solve them correctly. All right, let's do another example. Let's see here. Let's do 15 is equal to r over 2. Okay, so there's my red pen. So I've got r over 2. So again, I want to figure out what it according to my definition, my equation contains division. So I'm going to multiply both sides of the equation by the same number. So what number do I need to multiply by? Well, go to the side of the equation that has the variable and look at what number you have here. This is a division relationship. R is being divided by 2. If I want to undo the division, I need to do its inverse. The inverse of division is multiplication. So I'm going to multiply this by 2 and multiply this side by 2. Now, I don't have to put the 1 here, but you can. But ultimately, these cross each other out. And all I have left over here is an r. And then I know that 2 times 15 is 30. And then to check my work, be sure y'all show everything I'm writing, you should be writing. Okay, the steps and everything, not your own different weird way of doing it. Not weird, I shouldn't say that. Not your own different unique way of doing it. This, showing the steps like this. So I take my original equation, 15 is equal to r. I'm going to substitute in 30 for r over 2. Is that correct? Yes, because 30 divided by 2 is 15. So that is correct. Okay, so not too hard. Where it gets really tricky is when you get into fractions. And we are going to wait and do that Thursday, hopefully on a Zoom lesson. Because this morning I was practicing it and I literally, my head almost exploded because I was just making mistakes and I couldn't get it right. And I finally had to go refresh my brain. And I was like, we're going to wait and do that on Thursday. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is, of course, everything in your book here. We already have this in our notes. We have this in our notes. And we now have these two examples in your notes. We didn't graph them, but that's okay. So I want you to turn to page 337. It's just right across from the last page we did. And I want you to solve this one. And then, so pause, take a second and pause it. I'm going to rewrite it over here. Y over 9 is equal to -1, just because there's not a lot of room down here to work. And then I want you to solve it and then come back and let's see if we all came up with the same thing. Okay, so hopefully you're back. So again, since I have a division relationship, I want to do its inverse, which is multiplication. So I'm going to multiply both sides of the equation by a number, the same number. In order to figure out what that number is, go to the side of the equation where it has the variable and figure out what's the number over here where the variable is. Well, it's a 9. And the y is being divided by 9. So to undo it or do its inverse, I'm going to multiply by 9. Then I multiply by 9 over here too. These 9s end up canceling each other out. Because remember, I can say that these are both fractions that I'm multiplying, and then I can simplify across. And now I have a negative times a positive, which gives me a -1. So my y ends up being not a -1, -9, sorry. Okay, and so where's my -9? And if I wanted to check it, I would go back to my original equation and say -9 divided by 9 is equal to -1, and that is correct because a negative divided by a positive is a negative. Okay, all right. We're going to wrap up here with you guys working some practice problems that I've already written down for you. Oops. Okay, so pause the video, work these 6 problems either in your Spiral or on scratch paper, wherever you're doing that. And then when you're done, come back and we will go over the answers together. And that'll be it for the new material today. And then, well, I'll tell you in a second. Come back when you're done. Okay, if you can hear me, you're back. I hope you guys are being really honest and pausing these and working these. I really want you to try them. Okay, I'd rather you try them, make mistakes, watch the video, and see where you made your mistakes than to just sit here and copy down what I'm doing. You're going to learn better when you do it yourself. Okay. As with anything, you'll learn better when you do it yourself. Okay, so this is a division relationship, right? And so in order to undo it and isolate this variable and get the y all by itself, I'm going to multiply by both sides of the equation by the same number, and I'm going to use the 7. Okay. These are going to cancel each other out, or they don't necessarily. They just become a 1, and I don't need to write 1y. I can just write y because that means 1y. And when I multiply a negative times a positive, I get a negative 14. If I wanted to check it, I would say negative 14 divided by 7 gives me negative 2. That is correct. Okay, this one I'm going to multiply by 3. And I do put it up a little bit higher to show that it's really representative of the top of a fraction. Because then I can cross these before I multiply. Now I just have a y over here, and I have 15, which makes sense because if I put 15 here, 15 divided by 3 is 5. So it's great. When it's mental math like that, it's really great because you can actually check your answer super easy. Okay, this one I'm going to multiply by 12, multiply by 12. These 12s turn into a 1y. 12 times 10 is 120. If I was going to check it, I'd say 120 divided by 12 is equal to 10. That is correct. Okay, now we're going to get into some decimals. So let's see, I worked these ahead of time. Okay, I'm going to multiply by 4.5 over here. I'm going to multiply by 4.5 over here. I'm just using a dot. Well, that looks weird with the decimal, because if you wanted to on this side, you could put a multiplication sign. Yeah, it just depends. Your personal preference. Okay, again, this is the same as a fraction, so I can cancel those out. They just become a 1 over a 1, so I have 1z. When I multiply 4.5 times 6, I get 27, because 6 times 4 is 24, and then 6 more halves is 3, and so that's 27. All right, we're almost done. This one I'm going to multiply by 4. I'm going to multiply by 4. Notice I use a dot over here, but then I use a multiplication sign over here just because this one has a dot as a decimal, and this one has an X. So, I mean, you just want to write it to where somebody could read it and you could go back and read it, okay? So these are going to cancel each other out and just leave me 1x, and then 12 and a half times 4 is 50, because 12 times 4 is 48, and then 4 more halves gives you 2 more. If you're a mental math person, if you're not, if you have to come over here and do this, that's fine. Do that, but don't use a calculator. Use your math brain. Y'all are smart. Last thing, multiply by 3, multiply by 3. These will become 1 over 1, which gives me just an x by itself, and this comes out to 1350. If you had to come over here and multiply by 3, that's fine. Again, no calculator. So that's pretty much it. If you see, you're going to, after this video, there's one more thing to click on math, and it's going to be a document that has 6 problems to work that are, either division or multiplication. You're going to work them neatly on literally just kind of like this. It's not these problems, but it's 6 problems like this on paper. Snap a photo of this, upload this so I can scroll through really quick and make sure you guys are A, showing the proper steps, and B, getting the correct solutions. Okay. So that's it for math. And then tomorrow you will obviously practice some more of these. If I can find a quizzes or something for these are tricky because they take steps to write. So they're harder to play games with, but I'll see what I can find. If I can find a Quizlet or quizzes or something like that, I'll try to post something a little fun for practice, but we'll see. I don't want to make any promises. All right. See you guys later, and hopefully we'll do a Zoom lesson again on Thursday. See you later.